Hey everybody, NFI Hammer here. Today I am going to be painting a Necron Command Barge as well as the Annihilation Barge model. I'm really excited about how this model can sort of be built as two completely separate units and easily switch between them. If you're interested in watching a beginner attempting to paint all Necron units in existence, then you've come to the right channel. And let's get started. I have talked about the Imperium Magazine to death. This is issue 77 and 78. I don't think you can actually get your hands on these issues anymore. There is a new Warhammer Command Patrol magazine, which is awkwardly named, I think, because that's also a box set with the same name. But there are really great and cheap, affordable ways to get your hands on certain models. You can also check out stores like eBay and stuff like that to see if anyone's selling any issues that they don't want. Such as I sold all my Space Marines and Adeptus Mechanicus ones because I was only interested in collecting all the Necron ones. But there's great, stories and lore and everything, as well as painting instructions. So it's well worth getting for 20 Australian dollary dues each, which is how much they cost here. Assembling the model was fairly straightforward. There was a few kind of gotcha moments in that, making sure that the components are facing the right way, and the little two Necron warriors sitting on the front of the command barge are a little bit finicky, but they're nowhere near as bad as putting together the flayed ones, which drove me mentally crazy. I kind of like this croissant-shaped flying devices. I don't have very many of this sort of aircraft in the Necron, so I think this is kind of the closest that I've had so far in my painting experience now, which I've just been painting just a little over 2 years now. But I really haven't put too many hours behind it, so I still feel like I have a lot to learn and grow. And then there's also an Overlord as well that you get free in this model with Staff of Light, as well as the giant cannon. So to paint these ones, I'm just using some sticky tack. We call it blue tack in Australia, just to kind of stick the model together to make it easier to paint and to kind of visualize, but it just protects the areas that you're going to later glue, so that it's easier to glue with plastic glue because it's plastic on plastic without a layer of paint in between. And I've noticed there's some gaps still, so I'm using this green stuff with gap, which is what it's called, but I think it's just to keep it in a better condition by keeping the blue and the yellow tape separate, and then you just mix it together when you're ready. But I've noticed, a lot with the Necron shoulder blades, there's this little gap in there, which means when you're painting the model, it kind of looks a little bit, disjointed. So by putting a little bit of green stuff there, just helps close the gap. And then I'm just spraying with my Rust-Oleum flat black primer paint. I'm wearing thongs, as you can see in the background, or flip-flops if you're American. But I'm just trying to give a good even coat everywhere without putting too much on to lose the detail. However, because I'm also trying to film it at the same time, I've got it next to the ground, so it's a little bit awkward here. And there's so many different components in this model. I'm trying to flip the command barge upside down and not put my fingerprints on it, and I've managed to flip it upside down into the grass, which is probably the worst thing to do, and then I had to use my hands anyway to get it right side, but I'm just trying to apply an even coat everywhere. Moving on to painting, the first colour is Rhinox Hide, which is a dark brown colour that looks even darker when applied over a black base coat like I'm doing. And this kind of creates a metallic sort of titanium colour. It's not quite rust, but it's a very thick heavy, durable metal. So I try and paint this onto the parts of the Necron that I would imagine is sort of, the most indestructible parts. So things like claws or feet or whatever. So here I'm just painting it on some of the chassis of the aircraft just to try and hold it all together. I find that by, using the brown, it sort of breaks up a lot of the black color just to kind of give it a little bit of richness, and it's pretty easy to do. So moving on, I'm picking up the Warpstone Glow, which is this sort of green Necron color that I'm using in all my army, and I'm just doing a very bad job to fill in the gaps. I'm kind of just going quite generous with it and covering the model as well. Obviously, you can sort of water this down and try and just get it into the grooves, but I'm a little bit impatient, so I'm just going over it very quickly. And then the same as the Gauze Energy orbs and staff and that, I'm just kind of creating a base coat with the Warpstone Glow here. So just anywhere that I think will eventually end up green, I'm just kind of giving it this just to kind of build up the green from a dark color into a lighter green, which I'll be using Moot Green later. But before that, I'm going to get my Leadbelcher, which is my trusty silver paint. And now I'm more carefully trying to paint over the black primer as well as the Warpstone Glow green, and just kind of paint the surface of the model. So this way the recesses will show as green, but the outside will show as silver. And then just anywhere like the, I don't know what you call that, banister barrier unit at the top where the Overlord holds on to, as well as like the Necron warrior heads and arms and stuff like that. But I've just got my Necron warriors and stuff as reference because I want my army to look cohesive, so I'm just kind of painting them in the same style. And then I'm using my lighter silver, which is my Runefang Steel, and I'm just painting some more areas. And I'm kind of using the two silvers here as a way of differentiating them. Otherwise, if it's all the one silver, it would look very, one tone. But by having a bright and a dull silver, kind of allows me to differentiate some of the segments, such as these wings here, but without kind of introducing a whole new color into the color scheme, just because it's just a different brightness. It still is in the same family. And so here is one of my Triarch warriors that I'm using as a reference to paint the Overlord. They're basically the same style. They've got the same crown that they're wearing. However, this guy, because he's slightly higher rank, has a cape. So I've also got an Overlord, which is one of the first models that I've painted there because it has a cape as a reference. So Runelord Brass is the bread and butter of the Necron army that I'm painting, of the Shuriken scheme, the dynasty that I'm using. So I'm just painting up all the sort of sections that should be bronze into this color. And I'm also kind of just picking up any areas that aren't light or dark silver and aren't Rhinox Hide and just kind of painting them this color. So they're kind of the four colors that I'm working with on the model, and then I'm just leaving the rest black as sort of the conduit between the two. So really it's only 4 colors in total to kind of paint this model. And then there is accented areas that you want to paint gold just to really kind of make them pop. So you've got the sigil on the banister here that I'm trying to just highlight the raised beveled edges and paint them gold, as well as the sigil on the chest of all 3 of the Necron units, and his sporran, or his little front cape, as well as his crown, are also going to be painted gold. And I've started this new thing where there's circles on the model. I try and paint the inside of the circles gold. And then the sigils on the back of the wings of the command barge. And then I'm also picking out little details or accents in the weapons, such as the giant Tesla blaster and the little Tesla blaster. And so as I mentioned before, Moot Green is a brighter green, so I paint this over the areas that I painted Warpstone Green earlier, and by having a darker undercoat allows it kind of to gradually build up the color, and it just makes it easier. If you just paint Moot Green directly over black, which I do sometimes, you do have to go over it with a couple of coats just to make sure you have really good coverage. And then I'm also painting all the circles in the dials on the command barge green, as well as the weapons with the Gauze Energy green. And then again, I'm kind of painting in all the grooves of the weapon. So now I've got the Leadbelcher, which is the dull silver, back out again because I've realized I've missed a few places. So I paint the spine, every second vertebrae silver, which is like a certain snake that we have in Australia, and I just think it looks cool on the Necron army, as well as certain parts on the weapon. Basically anywhere I'm looking that's too much black, that hasn't really had anything to break it up, I'm going over with silver, and then with the weapons I'm tidying up the Gauze Energy with silver. And moving on to my first non-Citadel paint, which is Metallic Blue-Green by Mr. Hobby. I use this kind of to depict sort of futuristic alien technology. So there's a few sections on the command console, but these giant cannons that are part of the Annihilation Barge configuration, I'm also kind of painting these, charging station batteries at the back this color, as well as like the tips of the staff. This kind of just brings in a new dimension by adding an extra color, but the gold is very ornate and decorative, whereas this is more to signify sort of the shielding, invulnerable elements of the Necron spaceship. But really, I just like the color. I think it looks cool. And then I noticed the cape looked a bit boring, so I'm comparing it here with my Overlord. So I'm just trying to color in some of the designs on the back with Evil Sunz Scarlet, but I used to use Mephiston Red, but I dried the paint out, unfortunately, and had to throw it away. So I'm painting every second section this color, and then I'm going to come back later with Macragge Blue and paint in the alternating ones blue. And this just kind of gives the cape a little bit more detail and interest to it. Being all gold can be a little bit boring, I guess. But these aren't really gemstones, so I don't know if it fully works. I'm not 100% sold on it, but it is what it is. Now I'm using Pallid Witch Flesh as a white color to paint in the face, because with the face of these Necrons, they usually have a white kind of mask. I don't know if it's makeup or whatever it is, but I've noticed on some of the higher ranking ones, as well as like the death marks and stuff. So I'm just trying to put some paint in it without getting it everywhere. And then for the weapons, I'm just painting a really thin edge highlight of the white paint just along the barrel. And so that means I can use this technical Tesseract Glow paint from Citadel, and I can paint that over that white edge, as well as a little bit of the silver, to kind of create a bit of object source lighting it just kind of makes it look like the green glow is glowing over the top of the metallic. And I think it kind of creates a cool effect. But you need to make sure that you shake the bottle up really well. Otherwise, it does not work as you expect. It took me a long time to realize that. And then I'm just kind of doing the same to the console and the orb in the center of the vehicle, and just kind of creating that little bit of green glow effect everywhere. And then I'm using Agrax Earthshade, which is a brown tint, and I'm going over all the Runelord Brass areas, and this sort of just turns it in from a plasticky sort of copper color into more of a rich metallic color. It just kind of brings the model a little bit to life, as well as, you know, creating those recesses and shades and areas naturally just by letting the paint kind of pool. And then I'm just trying to go over the whole chassis here with that color as well, but it doesn't really matter so much if you get a little bit where you're not meant to, because it is just a shade. It's hard to kind of notice mistakes as badly. And then for the gold color, I'm using Berserker Bloodshade as a tinting color to kind of bring out the royalness and the richness of the gold. Again, it kind of does look a little bit plasticky if you just leave it without any shade. So by going over with this, kind of makes it a little bit more, I don't know what the word is, like royal, I guess, or rich, rather than just really two-dimensional, just shiny gold. I'm probably not explaining it very well, but it is an optional step. You can use Agrax Earthshade or you can use Nuln Oil, but if you want that redness, you have to use something like this. And now it's time to just assemble the model together. So the parts that don't change, such as the bow, I guess, of the ship and the Necron warriors, you can kind of glue them in. But you don't want to glue the Overlord or the cannon in, because those you can switch out to change configuration between a command barge and an Annihilation Barge. This was a little bit finicky because you have to glue the hand to the console and then the Necron warrior to the chair all at the same time so that they fit all together. But these banister, you just kind of clicks into place. But then I do glue the hand of the Overlord to the banister, so I can still pull it out and switch it around, but it just keeps everything in position. And then attaching the Staff of Light, so I can kind of make sure it's pointing at a cool and dramatic angle. So here's the finished product of the command barge. I had a really fun time putting this together. It definitely is a very unique and interesting model, unlike any of the other models that I've seen so far. I really like how it's kind of, 4 different models in one, with the 2 warriors, the Overlord, and then the ship. I'm really excited to see how this is going to play out on the battlefield when I play with my Necron army. I just think it looks very impressive. And then changing it over to the Annihilation Barge configuration is super easy. You just pop the Overlord out and pop the cannon in, and it's ready to go. And this also really looks quite intimidating in the battlefield, of having this giant mounted gun that's flying around is pretty impressive and pretty unique to the Necron faction, I think. If you've made it this far, please consider leaving a like, a comment, or a subscribe. It really helps me out on the YouTube channel, as the YouTube algorithm gods prioritize that sort of engagement. I'm also trying to hit 750 subscribers to paint my first Catan unit, which I'm very excited about, but I'm also equally very nervous about. So yeah, once I hit that target, I'll start tackling that unit. But again, yeah, thanks for watching. It's really good for me to be able to walk through my process and document sort of what it's really like for a beginner to be in this hobby that has given me so much joy for the last couple of years. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.